What does it mean to be human?
Could machines ever think as human beings do?
These are among a few questions that Anthropology, written by Lauren Gunderson, attempts to answer, while also dealing with themes of loss and coping with said loss. This version of Anthropology is the first stage production at Hampstead Theatre, directed by Anna Ledwidge. So, how has it shaped up? Is it worth your hard-earned cash? Or is this just one big waste of time? Let's find out. So, what exactly is anthropology? Well, other than being a scientific study of the different types of behavior in human beings, anthropology is a play about a software engineer from Silicon Valley coping with the loss of her sister Angie, who mysteriously disappeared when walking home from college one day. And she deals with it in the most sensible and logical way, by building her sister Angie as a digital simulation. The new virtual Angie begins to offer comfort until it reveals unseen and unheard details about the real Angie's disappearance. That's pretty much the gist without going into spoilers, which, if you're interested, will be talked about at the time shown on screen now. I was skeptical at first, I'm not gonna lie, and I was worried going in that I wouldn't understand anything that was going on, because when it comes to technology, I'm what you might call a Nokia brick user. But I love this play, and its themes especially. Love and loss is what plays the biggest role, and that plays into the motif of coping with past trauma. But don't be alarmed, because the light-hearted nature of the family dynamic, coupled with the bizarre relationship that every character has with Angie the AI, makes for an experience which brings a little light to these dark days of sisterhood. Speaking of characters, why don't we first talk about the quite eccentric Meryl, played by Mianna Buring, was weirdly charming. While watching from the start, it felt like she had very little stage presence, but as the story unfolded and you got to see more of her open up, you realised why. And that why was completely consistent all the way through. As a working actor, I found that she very easily split her objective from her super objective, and the line between the two never got muddled. As an audience member, I was always wondering why she wasn't getting more upset and losing herself. It felt like she would have been justified. But what's sad is that's how she copes. And it's the little details that keep her sane. The extreme workload, her pursuit to find the truth, the very bizarre way she tries to hide the AI from her ex, which feels straight out of an episode of Friends.
Sorry, we're on a major flan high.
All of this culminates in a very nuanced but also quite relatable protagonist. So any fear in her performance was immediately ejected from my mind. As we move on to talk about Meryl's ex-girlfriend, Raquel, performed by Yolanda Kettle, who really does well in that role of secretly hating the AI, because it's just not Angie. We know it, she knows it. She's basically speaking for the audience. The AI is a machine, and she tries her best to hide this fact for the sake of Meryl, because she cares deeply for her, and wants to help her get past the incident in a normal way. So by being there, she's reintroducing the fun that the group once had. This is a moment where the AI turns slightly sinister, and it plays into the big shock factor that comes later with a certain discovery made. She has the American sitcom moment. She is basically Susan from Friends whenever there's a Susan and Ross moment.
I should stay. I think we should both know what's going on.
Oh, good. This'll be fun.
There's always this sarcastic comment which bounces off the weird situation. And when Raquel enters Meryl's lab, that sitcom character comes out, which is one of the ways which boosts Miana's character to being more than just an American stereotype. The mother of Meryl and Angie, Bryn, played by Abigail Ford, was also a slam dunk. From her description to her arrival, she had a high status and a passive-aggressive wit to go along with it. She stood out completely and stole the scene from Miana because of her immediate and misguided motherly instincts, which, while mostly absent in the former, burst out when Angie is brought out on screen, leaving a very sweet and tender conversation between a daughter and their mum. Lastly, we have Dakota Blue Richards and her character Angie, and she was brilliant. I had literally just finished watching season 5 of Skins, which Dakota stars in as the protagonist, and as a child I was so obsessed with the Golden Compass. It was a complete favourite of mine growing up, so I'm literally the biggest fan. For now, I just wanted to talk about the things I liked. If I could describe this play to you in a few words, I would say it's a very good Black Mirror episode. The staging is white with neon light strips around the open box of the stage, which flash on and off dramatically when there's a scene change or a big shift between the characters happening, which instantly invokes the Black Mirror color palette of the title screen. But any fans of the show will be completely disappointed to find out that this is theatre and not a Netflix TV show. There's no blood and gore, and without getting into spoilers, let's just say that the ending is a little bit more Disney than it is The Deer Hunter, you know? I loved the moment when Meryl moved from stage left all the way to Angie on the right side of the stage. It was awkward and totally unnecessary, but fits and segments her character with more detailed layers. Like, I have no idea if it was intentional or not, and this is one of those questions I would have loved to have asked Dakota when I met her. It seemed improvised to me, but I could be wrong, and if it wasn't, then props to the director, Anna Ledwidge. Like, all the props. The Alan Turing test gets mentioned, even. I like this, and it feels on point with what they're trying to convey. But to some, it might actually come across as a bit of a tacked-on element, since the play is very short.
Most people say not. You're not most people.
It only has time to pay homage to how far technology has come. But since it serves for the deepening of the relationships between the two sisters, I'll give it a pass. But damn it, you're on very thin ice. But this doesn't mean that everything's all good, though. I don't know how people have responded to this play, other than positive vibes I got from leaving the theatre, but I feel that the critic's voice versus the general audience voices will be vastly different. I think they'll both come out of it with completely different opinions. Ultimately, it's a great play, and you'll get a lot out of it depending on how much theatre you've seen. But if you're expecting sci-fi movie rubbish, then this isn't for you. There's a scene at the beginning where the AI program completely fails and starts a line of dialogue which feels suited to the real Angie, who is locked behind this passive and safe version that Meryl has created for herself. It's completely uncomfortable and made me want to run up on stage and just shut the program down myself, because I didn't want Miana's character to go through that. The scene ends with her shutting the AI program down by helping it find a prompt. And this is one instance that moves towards the divide between the audiences and critics. People who think of AI as robots who will steal our receptionist jobs, then take over the world, will ultimately think that this is the point in the storytelling, where the AI will gain consciousness and start manipulating the people around Meryl, and will ultimately end up trying to hurt Miana's character, forcing her to keep moving forward instead of trying to cope with the past. But anyone who's ever seen a play will know that anthropology isn't that story. And when it comes to the wider landscape of theatre, it's actually pretty traditional because of its focused, character-driven relationships. You have to sweep a lot of factual programming concepts, as well as any sort of outside world building from the likes of the father, Bill, who gets mentioned and is briefly at the beginning to correspond with a Casablanca joke, because the father ends up being the person who is found to be the kidnapper of Angie. The whole finding Angie scene is nice on paper, but when you're watching and there's this whole build-up to the moment where she is actually alive, and the interaction is so brief and feels like the writer just wants to get to more juicier concepts and themes, which is weird, because there was plenty of time to answer these quintessential questions. The play is only an hour and a half. I suppose what I want to do is I want to pose a hypothetical question. And this is to the writing of the play. And that is, why is this stalker father not seen or brought up at any point during the finding of Angie? I don't know the answer to that. And to be honest, I don't really want to delve into that. I'm not a writer. I don't know the kind of processes which go into making a good plot. All we can really do is speculate. Is it because they wanted an all-female cast? Is it because the plot point would dilute the human and AI themes and questions that the play poses? The thing is, I don't know. But whatever the reason is, the play suffers for it. In a weird way, this poorly translated reunition of a family is what gives rise to an amazing end scene between the AI version of Angie and the real Angie. This is very much a Black Mirror episode through and through. But don't expect the same type of scope as Black Mirror. If you spend any time thinking about the logic of the narrative that is being shown to you, you're going to end up falling flat on your face, because the payoff of both the twist and the revelation isn't worth it. However, if you want to go in and just see some brilliant acting, brilliant growth in relationships, then this is the play for you. It's very American, and I love it for that. Relish in the relationships, more than the fact that logically, none of the sinister stuff that the AI did, realistically would never happen. But it has a great central message, and it asks and answers some brilliant questions relating to loss and learning to cope with past trauma. Not to mention whether you need to have a body to be alive. Like, come on. When has a play ever answered that question? Please don't answer that. If you want a number put on it, I'll give it a 7.5 out of 10. And if that seems a little bit inflated, I feel like the cast and crew deserve the tilt. So, if you want an answer to my question, what does it mean to be human? Well, it's you. You are the center of the universe, and it's up to you to experience life in all its colors and potential. And I think a theatre production attempting to answer that, plus a wealth of others, deserves your attention. And with that, I'm Xavier Rippon, and thank you for watching.